two warring topics were coming at me and from the guides, and I wasn't sure which one I was going to choose. But I realized that they're kind of related. So I'm going to go with the first one, but I think it's all going to kind of flow. And the first one topic that came through is all about the importance of self-trust and self-confidence when we're working with our guides and tuning into our intuition. And, I've been doing this work now for about 15 years. And so I've given thousands of readings to people all over the world. And I don't think I was terrible to begin with. I have clients that, I worked with when I first started that are still clients today. So I think that's a pretty good sign. But I will tell you that I have become a much more adept reader over the 15 years of doing this work. Like it's one of those things that happens. And I think one of the biggest factors that's improved my clarity and is my confidence and my ability to get my small self and my egoic mind out of the way and trust myself to just tune in, clear that mind and to listen. And, a lot of what happens, the guides say, and my human self can totally share this from personal experience. When we go to talk to our intuition, right? Or we go to, we think we're getting a message from a spirit guide, or, we have a hunch about something that feels right, is that very shortly thereafter getting that information, we talk ourselves out of it. We talk ourselves out of it because most of us early in life had these experiences where we knew something that, but we didn't know it in the way that, the 3D world was telling us, the consensual reality was telling us we get to know things. And we brought it to a teacher or a friend or a caregiver and, said, well, this is what I know. And they said, no, what? Huh? How do you know that? You can't know that way. And so we learn to distrust that. We learn to shut it down and we learn to question ourselves. Right. And so we lost that trust in that inner wisdom, in that inner knowing, and really sometimes even in ourselves. Right. Oftentimes early on, because the people in the world around us often have their own agenda, they have their own confusions, they have their own illusions. And just the way the human world works is so many of us have been taught to distrust ourselves on a really deep and fundamental level, right? Sometimes we don't trust how we're feeling, right? Sometimes we don't trust what we want, right? Sometimes, right, we don't know what we like or what we don't like, right? Sometimes, we feel like, well, maybe I have to go to the bathroom or I'm hungry. And, early on, a parent said, well, no, you don't. Sit down in your chair. Right. And so there's many times in this human world that has taught us, or somebody else had a different opinion than we did. And so they told us, no, that's not true. And you are wrong. Right. And all this kind of conditioning from the outside world. Right. And all this kind of training, and you might even say kind of taming, right, can have the effect of getting us to distrust ourselves, because trusting ourselves doesn't feel as safe or comfortable as blending in with others and listening to others and doing things the way others expect us to. And so I think one of the best ways to free yourself and your intuition is to learn to listen to yourself more deeply, to be the witness for what's going on inside, to create a gentle space of, just curiosity about what's coming through right now, right? What am I feeling right now? Right? What do I want right now? What's my perspective right now? What feels like my truth right now? And you see, the thing is, you don't have to get it 100% right, but it's just about bearing witness to yourself again, to opening up that conversation, to listen, and to have trust that when you start to reconnect with that, where you reconnect with that, having trust in yourself, having trust in your own inclinations, having trust in your own preferences, having trust in your vibes. And when we build that kind of deep self trust, it really helps us to align with and trust in our higher selves as well. Because at the end of the day, it's really the same thing. It's really the same thing. And the guides say your human self and your higher self right? At the best, alignment, the way that you really want to play this human game, if you can, right? Those two things become intertwined. And you start to trust that human perspective because it is intertwined and intermingled and interlaced with, the gifts and the wisdom and the love and the joy of your soul, right? And then your human self becomes that, human avatar for your highest and truest being. Okay. And so I think that's what wanted to come through. And I feel good about that. But it really is that confidence. And I want to say too, before I wrap up, because we have a little bit more time too, confidence is not bravado. Confidence is not needing to be right where others are wrong. Okay. That's not confidence. That's actually ego. Okay. Confidence is something more subtle than that. It's deeper than that. Again, it's trusting in yourself. It's trusting in what you know and allowing everything else to be where it is. And it's trusting, and I want to get this from the guides, but they say go ahead. It's trusting loosely, right? We don't have to be the final truth or knower of anything, right? It's just everything that your intuition tells you and everything, period, is what's actually happening in the now. Right. And what your mind will try to do is create the stable reality. I'm Victoria Shaw and I like sunflowers. Maybe today I do. And maybe tomorrow I'm going to put something else up there because my inclinations will change. Right. And so what's true for us, what's real for us is just in the now. It's what you're feeling now. Okay. And when we learn to trust in that and we learn to feel into that and we learn to recognize too, the guides say that what is true for us in the now from our perspective, right? It frees us up to have a deeper trust and to also just let go of what anyone else thinks or anyone else's agenda and really play more. And I want to get this from the guides, but again, they say, go ahead. Hopefully we're aligned and they're not just telling me to keep talking. Oh my God, they're laughing right now. Um, when we free ourselves up to follow and trust and have confidence in ourselves without needing anyone else to validate that for us. Sometimes they will, and it's fun when they do, but we don't need that anymore. We trust in our own alignment. We often find that greater alignment with everything else follows. Because when you trust in yourself, you start to attract in and create a world that is aligned with your deepest wisdom, joy, abundance, love, and truth. Okay. So that's all I have today. I hope that one, I hope y'all love that one as much as I did. I love what came through. And I am excited now to get on with the reading. I'm so glad to have you here today.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for what you're doing in the world. It's very needed to have this connection with the beyond in a way that's clear and mirrored.
Thank
Appreciate
you. Thank you. That means a lot.
it.
So I'm going to say a little prayer in a minute to tune into your energy, my friend. And I know we chatted a little bit beforehand and you had a couple of different questions. We very well might get to all of them today. So today's like your lucky day. Um, but I'm going to tune into your energy. I'm going to see what comes through, get a little bit of impression. But what I want to tell you is what I tell everyone before their first reading. And it's so important. The way that I see the gift that I have, and we all have gifts, by the way, right? They're different for everyone. This is just the way that I flow and the way that I work and the way that I choose and enjoy showing up in the world. But the way that I see the work that I do and the gifts that I have in service of that is that I'm a conduit or mouthpiece or channel for your own higher guidance. Okay. You've attracted me, your guides, these lips, these vocal cords into your space. Right. But you are in the driver's seat. You are in the driver's seat. Okay. And all of the answers that you need to navigate this journey are not in my head. They're not in my mind. They're not, even your guides don't really have them. They're all within you. And so it's really important to know that I'm the pipeline or conduit or channel for you to get your answers and to hear your own guidance. But you are in charge of knowing what fits, knowing what resonates, what feels right, and letting the rest go, because there's nothing that I don't know, or there's nothing that I know on some level that you don't also have within you. Okay. So I'm going to take a little bit of water to clear my throat. It's water, I promise. I didn't bring a cup. And then I'm going to tune into your energy and say my little prayer. I'm going to ask the ministry of angels around myself and my beautiful client. She has such a beautiful energy. I'm sure you can all see that. Zenka Kara with your beautiful white light. If I said that wrong, I'm sorry, but I think I got a vibe. So open my heart to divine unconditional love. You have a lot going on. Whew, and ask to connect to my highest self, guides, and angels, and those of my client Zenka. It's to be a clear channel with which to receive and communicate their wisdom. I ask to release any expectations I have towards the outcome of the work that we do together today. And I ask that the outcome of this work serve the highest and greatest good. Amen. So I'm just working on your energy a little bit. You have a beautiful energy, but there's a little bit of a heaviness in your heart. There's just a little bit of a heaviness in your heart. So my read is the channeled message that came through today was exactly what you needed to hear. So there's no accidents. And I really do think that you are on a journey with greater self-trust. And I think it's right on the cusp for you. I think you're a pretty serious person. You're a pretty organized person. You're a pretty detailed person. You have you have a very high level of integrity. And you like to accomplish things, do things, and be good at things. But inside, I feel this little child that sometimes just feels like she's running around trying to make everything work. You know what I mean? And like even though like you're wearing your big girl lipstick and your big girl clothes and you're doing so beautifully well, the little kid inside sometimes she's like exhausted and she just wants to like sit in front of the mirror and play grown up, but she doesn't want it to be so hard. Does that resonate?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see that on your face. So where would you like to begin today?
I thought of a couple more questions,
Oh
and one
boy.
of them is tied to everything else, I think. I have a predisposition to want to be right. And that
Okay.
was something you mentioned. Why is that? And how can I move past that?
My read is, but you'll tell me if I'm wrong because you know you better than I do, even though I'm going to pretend like I do right now as I tune into your energy, is that you are very afraid of being wrong, which is a different thing than needing to be right. So let me explain, right? Needing to be right. I mean, being afraid to be wrong. Let me get this from the guides. Oh my God, they're just laughing at me. That's not helpful. You know, they say you're doing fine. Um, so oftentimes in human terms, in human skin, they say there's this idea that you have a binary choice between being right or wrong. And again, as we said in the introduction, they say oftentimes it's I'm right and you're wrong, or you're right and I'm wrong. And we feel that those are our only two chances. And they say when you feel like those are your only two chances and someone else doesn't share your truth, then you're going to naturally feel somewhat diminished. Does that make sense? Because you're going to feel that if they have a different perspective and their perspective is right, that means something's wrong with me and I'm lesser than. Okay. And so the best way to solve this conundrum, they say, without throwing the baby out with the bathwater, is simply to understand, and speaking again to this idea of confidence, simply to understand your perspective is for you and for you alone. And nobody else has to share that with you. And if you find yourself again and again confronting people that need to be right and have you be wrong, you simply haven't found your soul tribe yet. Okay. And that's what your guides say. They have more to say, but I want to see how that lands. They have a lot more to say.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I deal with extreme consciousness reality, hacking and things like that. So it makes sense that a lot of people wouldn't
Yeah.
would somewhat reject.
Yeah. The other thing that happens too is as we're figuring things out, right? Everybody wants a cosmology, right? Or a way of understanding the world or a way of understanding themselves, right? That's what your mind is designed to do. In fact, you kind of need that to navigate the human realm. We need these concepts, these ideas, the idea of self, idea of others, idea of world and where I fit into it. And there's nothing wrong with any of it. I have my very own, ways of being. But if we lock into that as the only way for us or for others, it's problematic because it's never going to be right. It's always going to be an approximation. And what's true for you, what resonates with you, what's good for you might be very different than what's good for someone else, right? There are times when I'm giving a reading and I will tell somebody something that personally does not resonate with me at all. I wouldn't understand things that way. I wouldn't explain things that way. And the guides, but that's how the guides give it to them because that's what they need. That's what's going to help them feel better. That's what's going to get them to the next step. And so when we free ourselves from having to change anybody else's perspective, it also frees us up to have a looser relationship with our own and just be like, ooh, this feels really good to me right now. This is making sense. And then, I often joke that I've lived like, I think I'm up to like 22 lifetimes in this body, maybe like 32 by now. I don't know. Because my entire perspective of myself and others has radically changed so many times, just so many paradigm shifts. And I remember maybe like 10 years ago, I was sitting at my pool and I felt another really big one coming on. And I had this huge revelation that I didn't, though I really wanted to make that jump and I knew like the next me was going to be like even more amazing. um I realized that if I understand things in this new way, it's going to mean that everything I believed up until now is wrong. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that. It made me feel bad. And sometimes we do that. Sometimes we limit ourselves from growth this way because we falsely believe that as we expand and grow and change, that there's right and wrong, and that you know, and so if something could be better, it means that what we have right now isn't good enough. And nothing could be further from the truth. It's the opposite. Where you are now is perfect. And you might even go somewhere that feels even better, right? Because we're ever expanding beings moving towards that. Does that make sense? And even the word better is a little tricky because it's not really better. It's just you just keep expanding. And you can feel infinitely more good. Okay. I don't know. I'm losing something in translation with the words. So I think that can free you a little bit too of this, you know, um, I need people to understand my way, right? Um, and what it comes from for you is, and there's so much going on here, but there's just this deep inner fear of not being understood, if I'm reading you correctly. And like there's a little bit of a stubbornness because you don't want to give up what's feeling so right and true for you when other people don't agree with it. But here's the thing, Zenka, that I really want you to know. You don't have to. It doesn't flip and matter what they think. And there may be people in your world that, have a vested interest in you not having certain views of yourself or life or you know, I think a lot of them actually now, not so much when you were young, but now, because you're very strong now and you're very confident in certain ways now, and you've built that kind of strong ego in a good way. We can talk about that too. Um, but so I feel that now, if you held your ground, but from a place of this is what feels right to me, but you're welcome to have your own opinion, right? But you're not welcome to shame me with that opinion. You're not welcome to, you can judge me, but I'm going to walk away. You see what I mean? I think you'll be fine in a lot of, especially in your personal relationships and your family of origin. It wouldn't have been like that when you were a child. But I do feel you're fortunate that now they don't want to mess with you. Does that make sense?
Completely. Yeah,
Yeah.
completely.
Right. But sometimes it's that piece of not feeling like we're heard that really wants to make us convince the other person that we're right. But you're wasting your energy. It doesn't matter. I had a situation the other day where I felt randomly vindictive. And I'm not usually a vindictive person, but someone did something kind of really crappy to me last summer. And he posted something on Facebook. And I'm walking on the beach and I'm like, because sometimes I check my Facebook on the beach because I have a problem. No, but I get tired too and I just need to rest. But anyway, and so I'm walking on the beach and I'm like fantasizing about all these really like snarky replies, which I wouldn't do. I'm not that person, but that I could give to him, to his query, which would be really funny given what happened, And then I was questioning, like, why is it that, I can't let this go, or that, we take joy in being like, in somebody's face because, I think he has a vague idea of what he did wrong. I think, at the end of the day, it just wasn't important enough to him not to do it. But nonetheless, because we want the other person to see our perspective. That's it. I want him to say, "Oh my God, Victoria, that was a really crappy thing that I did, and I'm sorry." That's all. Because I want my perspective and my discomfort to be validated. And in the meantime, every person I've told the story to has gasped because it was just a really dumb thing to do. Right. So I've had plenty of validation if my ego needs it, that was not a nice move. Right. But sometimes that little hurting person inside of us, we just want the other person to be like, yeah, 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 I'm sorry. Right. And sometimes it's not even, what my guides told me, honestly, was that it didn't have any that much to do with this person at all, but it had to do with a primary caregiver relationship. That's what I wanted, right? I wanted that person to say all these times that I did something similar to you, they were mistakes. And that person's in spirit form right now, and he has apologized. Right. So does this make sense? That was a long story, but I think some of it's relevant to you as well.
Yeah, this is all landing really well. Thank you for shifting and expanding my perspective because these are things that I've been thinking about and haven't come
Yeah.
at all to these conclusions. So
Yeah.
that's very cool.
There's
Okay.
one more thing before you get your next question, because your guys have wanted to say this a couple times. Okay.
Yeah.
And you'll tell me if I'm wrong from, because you know yourself better, but I think they're pretty clear. They want you to know that you're not stubborn. I think you've been told over and over again, particularly when you were young, that you were stubborn and that you feel like you're stubborn. And like they say, okay, look, occasionally she's stubborn because like she's learned that she kind of has to be to kind of get her way. But they want to kind of go into the basis of what stubborn is. And stubborn is it's just like tenacity. Do you know what the word tenacious means? It's you standing up for you and saying like I don't want to abandon myself right now. And sometimes, of course, we can generalize this and be stubborn about like really dumb things because we don't want to be wrong just randomly. Like my grandmother, God bless her, I love her so much. One of the most stubborn, lovely, wonderful woman, but like she would do some doozies. She once was like absolutely convinced that a plane stopped in the air, and she said, "No, it folded up its wings and parked in the air." And I'm pretty sure it didn't do that, Graham. But she's laughing now. Right. So sometimes we can do that, right? We can just be, and I don't even know if that's because she wanted to be right. I just think that's because she was a character. But that's not you. That's not you. I think you just don't like it, really comes down to a desire most of the time to not abandon yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely.
That's very different than stubbornness. Stubbornness is my sweet grandmother needing to be right. And as far as I know, maybe she she really believed the plane folded up its wings. I don't know. I wasn't there. And, maybe the person who reported the story wasn't reporting it clearly, but I don't know. But anyway, right. And we see a lot of stubbornness right now in our government, right? Like people, they want to be right so much on both sides that they're just like, they're wacky. They're not even rational, right? That's when ego has taken it too far. Right. But the desire to say, no, this is a firm boundary. I'm not ready to do this. I'm not sure. I maybe don't agree with you. Like maybe that's not what I think the right thing is to do. No, I don't want to go there right now, mom. I want to do my homework or play with my friends or just finish what I was doing or just go to the bathroom. I don't know. That keeps coming up. That's not stubbornness. That's self-protection. That's trying to find a way to stay true to yourself when other people are pulling you away from yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think as like a people pleaser, um, kind of doormat personality has waned down since I noticed that, but that's been a big thing. So sticking up for my own self has been a practice and I'm getting the hang of it. But thank you for reminding.
Yeah, no, they just want you to know like you're not, it doesn't feel like it mostly comes from ego. It comes from self-preservation and wanting to be seen and wanting to bear witness for yourself. Okay. And not wanting to be wrong, not having other people shame you. Right. And again, you can be right and they can be right. You can be right and they can be right because from their perspective, something might make perfect sense to them that makes that much sense to you. And when we can have that perspective of like, I can be right and they can be right, because we may not be looking at the same facts right now, we might not be understanding the world in the same way, then it's freedom. It's freedom, right? You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to like it. You don't have to like want to engage with their truth if their truth is really icky for you. Yeah, I'm not saying that. You don't even have to condone it, but you can allow it because you can understand, okay, this is their perspective. This is what they've learned. This is the best way they can figure out how to make sense of the world. And if it doesn't resonate with me, I can just walk away. I don't have to participate. And they can be right for them, but I can be right for me. And there doesn't have to be any conflict. Okay. Now, you have some people in your life, if I'm reading correctly, that are not going to be able to do that little mental maneuver as easily as you can. So, though you started off by saying, I need to be right, my read is you're surrounded by a lot of people that, in the more egoic sense, they really need you to be wrong. Does that make sense?
Completely.
Yeah. So, you want to talk about that a little bit while I drink some more water?
Well, yeah, but I think it goes back to what you started everything off with, which is just like trusting myself. Trusting myself because this all doesn't end until it ends, until I'm dead. And so it's all going to unfold the way it is. And it's funny because you're saying to allow them their opinion, and that's actually what I'm asking them to do for me. So it's
Yeah.
that weird mirror thing where the thing you do to other people is the thing you wish they would do to you. And it's very like,
Right. And
so
again, they may not be capable.
yeah,
They may not be capable. So,
that's
you
fine.
know, you would like them to agree to disagree. But some people, particularly people that are skewed a little more narcissistic, again, not to throw labels around, but some people are so wedded to their ego and this idea of, it's control, right? In order for me to feel safe, everything has to go the way I think it has to go. And everybody has to go with my reality, what I think is best, what I think is good. Right. And oftentimes like the more ego invested we are, my first career was in academia. And fortunately, this did not happen in my program, but it was a known fact that many psychology programs, across the nation at top universities would have professors that didn't talk to each other. Hated each other because they had slightly different theories of something as esoteric as how memory works. Like this was just a known fact. Thank God it didn't happen in my right, because the whole fun for me was the fact that we can have conversations because we don't agree on things. Like that was the whole fun of academia for me. But literally, like people can be nuts. I was like, how could two people not talk to each other because they have a different theory of it's ridiculous, right? But oftentimes we confuse our ideas with our identity. and with our worth and our value, and then we get stuck. And the people around you are a variation of that. They cannot allow you to and they have an agenda in wanting you to do things the way they want you to do things. So for you to want to do things a different way seems like a personal affront. Okay. And again, if they're operating on that mindset that says either I'm wrong or she's wrong, they're going to make a choice of self preservation. Okay. And you probably up until now have made the other choice out of necessity of, well, maybe there's something I can revise here, and abandon parts of yourself that didn't feel good. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can't expect them to do what they're not able to do, but you can allow them to be who they are and then make choices within yourself about how you want to deal with it. For example, if someone is being very aggressive or abusive, you can say, you may not interpret your behavior as aggressive right now, but I'm feeling very uncomfortable. So I'm going to hang up the phone. Bye. Right? Right. And you can do that, right? By just all you're doing in that situation is honoring your truth. Now, if they call you 10 more times swearing at you, who has the problem? Well, a little bit you, but like that's that's on them. That's someone that is not able to respect a boundary. And those people are very hard to deal with. And those people tend to, teach us how not to have boundaries. But 90% of the people, when you say it like that, will cease and desist. Right? They'll understand, right? Or, sometimes these are your people, but for people listening that are not dealing with really difficult people, sometimes just saying what you need and what you're experiencing and honoring what the other person needs and what they're experiencing, but like saying, but I got to stay true to myself. Sometimes that does open the door for compromise and communication, and because it lets the other person's defenses down. But I feel in your case with some of the people that you're dealing with, it's just not going to happen because they're just my way or the highway. Right. And it's sort of like my dog when, she would get a chewy bone in her mouth. We would not try to get that out. We just wouldn't. The dog walker wouldn't. Nobody would, because like we like having hands, you know? It was it. She's also in spirit now, and she says I was absolutely adorable, but right, but that was one particular boundary she was never going to respect. Does that help?
Yeah, definitely helps. Definitely resonates.
Good.
So I have questions about love, questions about parenting, questions about ET contact, which we didn't talk about, questions
Okay.
about work, but we can do what you want after this one question. But you had said that you felt that I had a heavy heart, and I do. I've been working on it for about a year and a half. And I just ended like a 2.5 year relationship. And yeah, it's like I know what I'm looking for, and I want to hold out for that. And
Yeah.
I don't know what the guides have to say, but it I want to know, maybe I guess I know what I learned, but it's just, yeah, it's again, it goes back to your original question, like trust yourself, even though it was very hard to pivot on this one. I think I made the right decision. And I kind of want to know what's ahead, but I'm also attached to the outcome.
Duh. Yeah. It's nice when we're not, because life is easier when we're not, but it's natural to be, right? So we have these teachings that say don't be attached to the outcome. And the less you are, the better it is, I swear. But you have to be okay with your human parts. There are things that I want. There are things that I'm disappointed when they don't happen. I'm human. Right. And though I understand how life works, I understand how the law of attraction works, I understand how suffering works, I understand how joy works, I get all these things. I also understand how Victoria works. Right. And so I'm very kind to her and very gentle with her and very loving with her. And that tends to get me back on track real fast. Okay. So I hope that helps. And if you don't mind, with the previous relationship, as I read in, I feel that he was very complicated. I feel that he was very difficult. I feel that you see him as emotionally fragile. Um, I see him as emotionally difficult. um, but you couldn't fix him, you couldn't solve him. And, that was the impetus for the relationship. Like I think that you thought that you could help him, that you could heal him, that you could do all that for him. And I don't think that's what he wanted. I think at first that kind of you gave him a lot of passes and you were very loving to him and very understanding, but I think he took advantage. And ultimately, he's one of those people, if I'm reading him correctly, it's a male, right? Yeah. Okay. I mean, seems like a male, but I didn't want to make any assumptions. He feels like one of those people that really, at his core, does not want to admit that he's wrong. Um, or anything's wrong, even though he might always say everything's wrong and play poor me a lot and always have an excuse and seem like very sensitive and very like at his core, there are certain things that are not ready to shift because there's like barbed wire around them. He doesn't want to go there. Does that make sense? And the more at the end that you tried to help him and guide him, the more he felt like you were saying he was broken and it pissed him off. Okay. And I do think that your ministrations, that's the word that comes through, were very well intentioned and very kind and very loving. And so what's important to know is that he couldn't receive them. He just couldn't receive them. And that's probably indicative of some other relationships that you've had in your life that you are working through this little pattern. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to say who it is, but I see some parent action there. That was a similar thing of feeling that if you can love somebody hard enough, because you can see why they're hurting. So if I just love you hard enough, you'll stop, like stop snapping at me all the time. Right. But that's a pattern that I think, you're ready to let go of. And I also feel that you really have a desire to be cared for a little bit more and not just be the caretaker. This person did it somewhat in some ways, so that's good. Save those because you can use those to manifest again. But in other deeper ways, like emotionally, he was not able to go there with you. And I think you'd really like somebody who's able to go there with you emotionally, but they also have this very, and word doesn't make any sense, this for very creamy quality. It's just like, it's like kind of soft and it's like it's a depth of emotion, but it's like without all the sharp edges. Just somebody that can really comfort you and just kind of be there with you and not go to extremes, not need to go to extremes, but help you when you feel like you're going to extremes and kind of hold you and kind of calm you down. That's what I feel like you would like to bring in, somebody like that. And somebody that really is here to emotionally care for you a little bit rather than you trying to find all the like people that are more like broken emotionally and like trying to like pick up the pieces. It's like I see you just like trying to sweep up a bunch of like broken shards into the dustbin and like, okay, there's a boy, there's a boyfriend, there he is. And then you keep, poking yourself because they're just pieces, they're just like shards of glass. Okay. Whereas I think what you really want someone is just to hold you. You're very soft, right? If you would allow yourself to be held, like you're not going to bite anybody, you're not going to poke anybody. And I think that'll help you soften and relax. But I just don't think you've had that yet. Right. And I think that's just not a pattern that you're used to. And so just bringing that in a little bit more and honoring how you feel. I don't think you're going to go back to another, I think you're going to see the red flags a lot sooner. But I think that this relationship was just, it was just a familiar pattern for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. Another way of saying it, your guides say, is stop working so hard. If you have to work that hard at a relationship, let it go. They shouldn't be that much work.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. It should be mostly fun. Why not? Right. And, there are people out there that don't have depth, and that's not you. That's like a whole nother story. But for you, like, it should be easy most of the time. That's what you're craving. That's what you're deserving. And there's no reason why you shouldn't have that. And it feels like when it's not easy and you're overwhelmed, you actually need someone who can meet you there and be like, it's okay. It's all right. Take a breath. I love you. Right. Rather than a lot of times, too, I think when you get overwhelmed, you've had the experience of being kind of like emotionally abandoned and then having to walk around and like start picking up the, 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 the pieces of ouchy glass again. I hope that metaphor makes sense. Okay. I don't think you're 100% ready for it yet, even though I know, but like keep feeling into that and keep looking for areas where you feel that and start to do that a little bit more for yourself, which you are learning to do. And that's what's going to draw in this person for you. Sometimes it's like we get into our heads and we're like, oh no. And then as soon as we pre-chatted, I was like, oh no, this is what's supposed to happen today. Because everyone who watches this for you, my friend, there's so much wisdom that came through today for so many people and so many things. So I just want to thank you for coming out today. This was super fun reading to do. I feel like you are so ready for it. And I think a lot of what came out today will be super helpful for so many other people. So I just wanted to say thank you. I'm really glad things always work out the way they're supposed to. So I am not a specialist in your last question. Not something that super interests me at all. So
So let's do the work questions. So
right.
the
So
work
I
question.
yeah, I'm not against ETs and I believe in them very heartily when they come. I'm happy to say hello, but it's not my jam. I'm
Okay,
I'm I'm
perfect.
more of a human whisperer. Um
That's good.
but okay, last quickie question and then we'll wind it down.
Okay, so I've been, I have a nonprofit and I was always like my North Node's in Capricorn. So I'm supposed to be leaving a legacy, raising millions of dollars, like really owning
Ooh.
that. And I am. Now that I found it was in my
Okay,
North.
I'm gonna pause you because your guys are answering part of your ET question. And then if we have time, we'll get to the other thing. Okay. But they may dovetail. Okay. And part of your question is this: there's a whole new world of people sort of understanding that in the very near future, we're going to have open contact with people from other planets, galaxies, whatever. Again, not my area of expertise. Not close to it, just, not my area of expertise. But for you, what your guides want you to know is it's the same thing. You don't need to go on the hilltop and get everybody to say, get on this team. You have to see this. You have like your truth is for your truth alone. If it resonates with you, if you're excited about it, if you want to align with it, if this is like, ooh, one of the things that I think I'm here to do is to get on team welcoming, the welcoming bandwagon for these beautiful beings that want to come play with us again on the earth, then you do that. Right. If your dad thinks you're nutty buddy, if your ex-husband says, don't talk to your mother about that stuff, don't worry about it. Say, I have my truth. I have what excites me. It's a perspective. I'm happy to share it with you, but if you want to have a different one, sweetie, that's okay too. Okay. That's kind of what they want you to know. They say that, and I don't know this to be true in this mind, but this is what they say. There's a lot of teachings around this, that say it's been suppressed. We have to like prove to others. And they say you absolutely don't. You absolutely don't. Some people right now are finding community in other people that believe the same thing and see the same things and have the same experience because it's fun and exciting and validating for them. And because it also is generating some energy towards, the believability of the possibility of this, which is going to bring it in for those of you that desire it. Okay. And none of this has anything to do with what anybody else thinks. So play with it, have fun with it, enjoy it, but release, if you can, some of the heaviness around it. Okay. We're not being tested. We're not being tested. Like I say, we're being toyed with, but we're not being tested. Right. And it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. So open your heart, get excited about what you are, enjoy the aspect that resonates with you, but let other people again believe what they want to believe. And on your nonprofit, they have something to say without you even giving me any information. So I'm going to say it. And they say you speak to this idea of legacy. And they say, it's so interesting. They say legacy can be a double-edged sword. Because if you are trying to imbue into this world, this idea, this ideal of what and how you need to leave something behind, like in indelible ink, like a gravestone, or like, this is what I did, this is who I am. To some degree, you'll limit it, and you'll limit its ability to grow and change with you moving forward. And even after you leave this planet, which I think is a very long time away, you are not going anywhere shortly. Um, so what they want you to do is a couple of things. They want you to focus on having fun now. Having fun now is way more fun than a legacy, because a legacy, they say, is kind of like a gravestone. And why on earth would you want to be thinking about what you want to engrave on your gravestone right now when you're what, like 40 years old, 30 years old? Like, you got time. Right. And, if you want to put something down in your will, do it if that's fun for you to think about and exciting. But, nothing finite is going to represent your time on the planet. They're just different ways to express yourself and different expressions of yourself. Okay. And the most important thing for you to recognize is when you look down, and my father passed away in 2023, and he showed this to me, and it was such a beautiful thing. He's like, when he looked down on his life, right, it wasn't the things or the moments that stood out in like the diamonds. He was like showing me, like, I'm looking down and all the diamonds over the path of my life. He was like, it was the moment of joys. And he's like, some of those things and those accomplishments brought me pops of joy. And he's like, they were fantastic. And some of them didn't. Some of them were just things I thought I would like, or things I thought I would want it. I was like happy for a minute, and then I went back to being miserable. Right? It's the joy that counts. It's the joy that counts. That's the moment, that freedom of, that's the moment when you're like really aligned in that freedom of expression, they say. So whatever you want to create, don't hold it and like, it has to be this way or else it's going to, like, play with it, allow it to grow and change along with you, allow it to evolve, and know that like nothing you create here on earth will be a full and complete expression of who and what you really are. Okay. It's just, they're giving me the image of, they're giving me two images, but one is like the idea of the monks that do the mandalas, but they're even showing me a bigger one. They're showing me of someone who's like, in the desert, probably because I'm looking at two photos of Tangela standing in Sedona right now. People probably can't see this on the live, but you can make marks in the desert, right? And they can be helpful. They can be a guidepost for the next person. It could be communication. You could be teaching, but over time, right? They're going to blow away. They're going to blow away, or something might be left that's just a remnant of what was there before. It's not wrong. It's not bad. It's just about how life works, and all structures, right, eventually will dissolve. And so they say, don't worry so much about your legacy, right? Just worry about what you're creating now, and allow that to just grow and change and evolve with you as you do. And they say from that energy, you're going to create things that are going to have a much stronger impact. And that's really what you long to do. You really long to have an impact in the work that you do now and to have fun with it. Okay. So
Great advice. Amazing.
okay.
I'm always saying joy is the most important frequency that you can emit in the world.
A thousand
So
percent. A
I'm,
1000%. And it speaks to your first question about not wanting to be wrong, right? Because, when you're just freely expressing yourself, and that it could change, and that I don't have to grab onto everything to make it right and good. I can just have some flow and some fun. It changes everything. Well, you were a delightful guest, Zenka. I'm so glad it worked out today. And this is just beautiful. Any like closing words or quick little questions as we start to wind it down?
Well, I'm just so grateful for you. It was so, you were like, oh yeah, people are going to get to see what it's like to do a full session. So it is cool because you're right. From the first moment you open your mouth to the whole thing, it does relate. And when we can have awareness on our way of being, we can change and sculpt and create a way of being. So thanks for giving me these reflections because sometimes it takes years to get these, and it's so great to just be in your presence and to have these things come back. It's really helpful, and thank you so much for everything you're doing in the world.
Well, thank you, my friend. Thank you. This was really, really, really fun. And they wouldn't have come through if you weren't ready to hear them. And the good news is this will be recorded so you can listen again and again and again and again. Because sometimes it takes a while, like I have people call me 10 years later and they're like, that thing that you said in 2014, I understand it now. No, but you're hearing it all right now. And for everybody
Oh,
else,
truly.
yeah.
I always record the channelings that I get, and I always, you got, because yeah, it's a lot coming at the same time, but thank you, because
Yeah.
yeah.
And just cherish yourself. That's your guide's parting words. They say, really take time to cherish yourself, to honor yourself, to love yourself, and to let yourself to just be who you really are. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks except for you. Right? It matters how we treat and honor ourselves. That's the only one that matters.
Thank you. I needed that.